New cars. This was once part of the American dream, but now it's out of reach for many in the US.
Americans need cars because this country is huge.
Cars are quintessential to the American lifestyle, but unaffordable for millions.
Affording a car, the maintenance of a car, and the insurance of a car has become a major challenge, obstacle, and problem for many, many thousand Americans. Why is that? We'll find out.
Americans and the automobile.
Cars and America, this is a love affair.
A love affair lasting more than 100 years. A special relationship driven by the idea of unlimited mobility and with that, freedom.
All right, let's talk about what cars are to Americans.
The land of the free and home of the brave, unified in its appetite for more cars populating an ever-expanding highway and interstate system.
We constitute the greatest country in the world, great in resources and in the vision of our people, great in accomplishment in the past, and equally great in promise for the future.
The modern United States of America.
You want an automobile because it's the easiest way to explore this great country.
This country and its economy build upon the idea of untamed growth fueled by unlimited mobility guaranteed to everyone and for limitless interstate commerce. Cars and trucks of all kinds and sizes, available and affordable, essential for work and play, part of the American lifestyle.
If you look back into the early 1900s, it's probably why they created the automobile, was to get through the different states, especially when the roads and the interstate network started. In Indiana, especially.
It's speed, passion, and pageantry.
Races and rallies, Indianapolis.
Hello from Indianapolis and from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the trademarked racing capital of the world.
All part of the American DNA, motorsports and auto shows.
So you might ask, why are we in Indianapolis anyway when we're talking about transportation, mobility, and the challenges for many Americans when it comes to mobility, transportation, to afford a car? Indianapolis is the so-called crossroads of America, and quite literally, because major highways from the United States are really crossing in this city here.
The last few years have been good to the US automobile industry. Car manufacturers have been cranking out new vehicles in greater numbers and at ever higher prices for the last several years. Profits are up, way up. However, there are some dark clouds on the horizon for consumers and businesses in the world's second largest automobile market. For a growing number of Americans, the equation has become this: no car, no job, no American dream.
Car repair costs, car maintenance, car insurance, prices rose through the roof within the last 2 years. Why is that? And how is it all connected? We're going to find out.
Car buyers of all ages, income groups, and of whatever social status are bleeding money, no matter if they buy a new or a used car. Things have gotten so out of hand lately that cars for everybody, mobility for all, has become a struggle or almost entirely unattainable for millions. We're at the 2024 New York Autoshow, a staple on the US and international auto show circuit. But before we go inside, let's talk about a few important numbers. In 2023, there were 292.3 million vehicles registered in the US. Those vehicles made for 376 million gallons of gas used per day. That makes the US the biggest consumer of gasoline, ahead of China, Japan, and Russia. On average, Americans drive a lot, about 41 miles a day, to work, to go shopping, or for a doctor's appointment. That's more than ever before. And when Americans go on vacation inside the country, 98% of them are doing so by car.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Back at the auto show in New York, we're meeting with Greg Morrison, automotive journalist and car enthusiast. Greg is the producer of
This is Bumper to Bumper TV, There was a major cold snap across the United
He
States.
tests and evaluates new cars, all brands, makes and models. Greg has agreed to help us better understand a few things about what is going on in the US automotive industry with auto shows and with US consumers.
I did not know that it was still such a magnet for people, because I thought, okay, so cars are now almost like a luxury item.
In many cases, yeah, $40,000, $50,000 startup price.
Starting price, exactly. So is it when people come here to an auto show like this, is this for them the opportunity to touch their dream? Or is it like, no, I'm shopping for a car which has to be useful, economical, all of that. It has to get good gas mileage. They're doing their research here, or is it touching the candy?
It's a little of everything. You get a chance to touch the candy, so to speak. Because you see cars that there's no way in this life I'm ever going to be able to afford it, but you get a chance to put your butt in the seat and say, oh, this is nice. And while you may not buy that total upscale model, you may be attracted by the brand to go to something that's a little more affordable.
Affordable, that sounds good. The problem, finding a new and affordable vehicle has become nearly impossible in many cases. The same is true when in the market for a used car, since interest rates are astronomical compared to what they were just a few years ago.
That average cost of a new car, that's gone up substantially in the last, say, 5 to 10 years. The average cost of a new car was about $38,000, and that was 5 years ago. And now it's up to $45,000.
Since 2020, prices for new cars have on average increased by a whopping 31%. The increase for used cars is even higher and stands at 40%.
It's getting very close to the median income of households in the United States. That growth in car price came at a time of very, very low interest rates. Those used car and new car prices are enormous, and it's a much different thing if you can get 0% financing versus 7% financing.
Buying a $45,000 car, almost the median yearly income in the US, and financing the purchase at 7% or even higher adds thousands in interest payments to the final bill. The result, a growing number of Americans get into massive debt just to keep up with car payments before in many cases defaulting in the end after all.
I read that most Americans finance cars. It's the second largest expense after the mortgage, after what they pay for their houses.
The house, the car, college education for the kids. Those are the three big bites. And if you're not financing for 3 years anymore, you're probably financing for 5, sometimes 7 years. That's a lot of time to be putting a monthly payment going.
But wait, there's more.
What people are surprised by now are things like insurance. Nobody buys a car thinking about repair or maintenance costs. But new cars are becoming more expensive to fix, and insurance is going up. So there's these costs that are sort of surprising people.
A couple of things are happening. With all the technology, insurance costs tend to go up because it costs more to repair a car if it's been in a collision, when you have to readjust your headlight system, not just your headlight system, but your safety systems and so forth. That's more than just putting it on a scale. You have to use high-end computer tech in getting the parts. That drives up the cost of ownership.
In just 1 year, from 2021 to 2022, insurance costs have gone up by around 14% and another 20% by the end of last year. That's up 34% combined in just 3 years, the steepest increase since the 1970s. At the same time, insurance companies report record-breaking profits thanks to rate increases. And that means a growing number of so-called average Joes and people who earn an income that just about lets them get by are getting crushed when it comes to vehicle ownership and guaranteeing their need for mobility and affordable transportation options.
Those are the folks who are really going to be squeezed in this crunch. Not having access to mobility, and without access to mobility, you don't have access to employment. Without access to employment, you cannot take care of your family.
Topic: public transportation. The public transport authority here in Indianapolis is called Indigo. Those guys are trying to really do their best to transport thousands of people who can't afford a car to places they have to be. That be work or for shopping, and of course also doctor's appointments. Here's the thing. Most importantly to understand is that public transportation always in the United States, if we're not talking about New York and the subway there, or maybe San Francisco and the tram system there, has a challenge and was always challenged. Public transportation and America, that doesn't roll off the tongue as easy as, for example, in Europe.
Public transportation customer numbers in Indianapolis are not only back where they were before the COVID-19 pandemic, they've been rising lately. In 2023, fixed route ridership was more than 6.7 million, a 20% increase over 2022. The city is bucking the trend that sees many metropolitan areas in the US struggling with rider numbers and with funding. However, even Indianapolis is facing challenges with shifts in transportation needs for more and more people who cannot afford a car, but who must respond to changing demands if they want to get or keep a job.
All well set in the metropolitan area, but then you have the burbs, and you have jobs also going and companies going outside of downtowns. This is not just Indianapolis, this is all over America. So now you have to bring city folk to the jobs outside of the city. That's a challenge, no?
It is a challenge, but you know what? Thanks to great partners, again, we have been able to do that. We're able to get people in the urban core, as you say, out to the burbs, to our neighboring counties, where the jobs are, to the fulfillment centers, good paying jobs.
And to Nicole. She works as a home health aide. Nicole takes care of seniors, elderly clients who need help with all sorts of things like getting dressed, taking meds, and any minor chores around the house. We're joining her on a ride to work this morning. Nicole lives in the suburbs of Indianapolis, and her client lives even farther from any remotely convenient bus line Indianapolis public transport provides.
You never had a car? You don't want a car?
I do, but I ain't had a car though. Well, I do want one, but eventually.
Untarnished mobility, and with that a chance for more or better work, has so far remained elusive for Nicole, as well as for many others. For them, the best way to get to work is by using what's called a micro-transit option.
So this is a micro-transport program, and those buses bring people to their jobs, to the doctor, or to a pharmacy to pick up medication. This is for people who don't have transportation, who don't have cars, who can't afford bus tickets.
In 2022, 5.7% of adults lacked reliable transportation for daily living. That's about 15 million Americans struggling to get from A to B on a daily basis.
The CDC, the Center for Disease Control, has just released new data and saying that this is becoming a real growing and bigger problem year after year. For people who don't have transportation, they don't go to the doctor as they should, they don't pick up their medication. Those micro-transport, like here in Indianapolis, they're trying to rectify this. 2, 4, 6, 8 people, there's enough space for people in wheelchairs, 1, 2, 3, 4 spots for this. So this makes a difference.
Indianapolis Councilwoman Lakeisha Jackson came up with a program called Driven to Success Pathway Microtransit. Jackson, her staff, guests, and supporters are celebrating its success and second anniversary.
If we had better transportation, we had a great public transportation system here, but there are gaps in the services. So if we could fill those gaps where we could get right demand to where we need to go instead of taking several buses, or where the buses don't go to for public transportation, to employment, childcare, to our grocery facilities, where we don't have to drag several buses, bags of food on the buses, or we don't have to take 3 or 4 kids or strollers on the buses and it's raining, then that would help us.
What do people in the outer world have to understand about what the reality is for many, many thousands of Americans, actually, when it comes to mobility and transportation?
The reality for many people that most people don't understand is many people are one paycheck from being poor, in a shelter, out on the streets, homeless, unhoused. So if it's between transportation and eating, they're gonna eat. If it's between transportation and paying the rent on the mortgage, they're going to pay the rent of the mortgage. We address social determinants of health, and transportation is one of the social determinants of health, and it's needed.
Transportation is many things. Access to public transportation and micro-transit options are an ever-growing and important part of it, even in the United States. But mobility in this country comes back to one critical component, the car, and access to it. That's why affordability plays such an important role for everybody.
Affordability is sort of semi-formally defined as roughly being 15% of your household income for not a car, but for overall transportation costs. And so it turns out most Americans do buy cars, need cars to go to work and to earn a living or to spend on their earnings. If they have to go someplace to take a break, to go to a theater or go to eat something, they still have to drive.
That's why the future of the car determines a lot in all things transportation, and with that, the future of the American lifestyle, the country's social structure, and of course, its economy. So, what will this future look like? What is the fix for America's car affordability and personal transportation crisis?
I dreamt last night the moon was so bright it melted the walls away. And it wasn't alarming when I saw Prince Charming come into my bedroom and say,
let me persuade you to come to the place where tomorrow meets today.
We visit the Silo Auto Club in Indianapolis and Mike Simmons, the owner. At first, he started Silo, an upscale parking space for even more upscale vehicles, as a hobby. Simmons, a classic car enthusiast, now runs Silo as a business that also functions as a social club for a growing number of other lovers of classic, exotic and luxury cars, all equipped with good old internal combustion engines. America's proclaimed ongoing EV revolution hasn't reached Silo and Mike Simmons, at least not yet.
I've not been as drawn to the electrification of the industry from as a hobbyist or really even as a consumer. But I also get the fossil fuel argument. I get global warming. I get why there are reasons why we need to move away from fossil fuels, and that it's all good.
Bad news for Simmons. Electrical vehicles, or EVs, soon with autonomous driving, are the future, the automobile industry says. Experts add that all of the above will change how we transport, how we get around better, faster, and foremost cheaper. The US government is spending billions on furthering the EV transformation on American roadways. However, the number of EVs sold in the US last year fell behind expectations. Only 1.2 million battery-operated electric vehicles and just 190,000 plug-in hybrids sold in 2023. That's just a fraction of overall vehicle sales. In comparison, a total of 15.5 million new vehicles were sold in the US in 2023, roughly 12% more than in the previous year. On top of that, used car sales totaled 35.9 million last year.
I can hardly wait for this dream to come true.
Yes, those numbers will change significantly in the next 10 to 15 years, industry experts and policymakers say. But for now, US legacy car makers need big sales of internal combustion engine vehicles at high prices and with the best possible profit margins. Here's why.
For the legacy car makers, they have to be able to make good profits on the internal combustion engine vehicles, because those good profits are needed to be able to supply the much desired free cash flow that's demanded by the growth and ever hungry electric vehicle side of the business.
For consumers, for potential car buyers, for all people who want and need an affordable car to be their choice of transportation, that's bad news. Prices for new and used cars will likely remain high or get even worse for the foreseeable future. The same goes for repair, maintenance, and insurance costs. Real affordable mobility, so critical for millions in the US, a non-starter, right?
This is a question that I think will be solved in a uniquely American way. And by that I mean in a way in which America has seen before. This will be solved by innovation on technology on two fronts. So innovation on the technology front and innovation on the market-facing front. And at the end of the day, everything else will fall into place. I do firmly believe that free markets will be the solution to this. And the free market solution will come by that pent-up demand. As vehicles become more and more unaffordable, there will be a demand for an extremely low-cost, highly affordable vehicle, and there will be a shake out here and consolidation that will have to follow to be able to make that happen.
Until then, affordable mobility for all can be achieved only through subsidies, some experts say.
I think where we are right now is we're sort of in the discovery and diagnosis phase of these new high costs of driving. And we're going to see the policy responses come out over the next few years. The most direct thing that we could do and the fastest thing that we could do would be to simply subsidize people being able to drive.
A monthly check from the government so all people can get to work, go shopping, and keep their doctor's appointments. A quick fix, why not? And in the future, say goodbye to individual car ownership entirely. All vehicles will be electric and self-driving, ready to be used via a government-sponsored basic subscription model, available anytime and anywhere with a click. And yes, there will be an app for that. Smart vehicles, as in safe, economical, affordable, and accessible to all people, made possible by financial subsidies and incentives from the government. Sweet dreams? Who knows? However this will shake out, it's going to be a long way to get, well, anywhere. What do you think? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel.